ought to be getting pretty close to Interstate 40. That way, here we go, folks. Where is it? It's up here. Alright, finally on 40 West, we're going to be heading through the mountains. Can't promise the live stream will be up as we do that, but certainly when we pop onto the other side of the mountains, out into the high plains, finally, our triumphant return to the high plains, the cell signal will be fine and dandy there, you can be guaranteed. By the way, I shut the stream off too early last night. You would have been amazed by the view of the city lights of Albuquerque coming down off that mountain. Very, very photogenic, very beautiful. And I was kind of regretting not streaming that, but next time, I plan to come out here this winter and try to catch a nice snowstorm in the Grand Canyon area and get some shots of the Grand Canyon shrouded in snow. So I'm going to be watching that very carefully as we head through the winter and maybe make a quick shot out here. It looks like something is setting up. Yeah, 40 East, sorry, 40 East. I've been saying west for so long now. For a week we've been going west, so it's tough to get back into that mindset of talking about east. I tell you, when we hit those high plains of eastern New Mexico, that is a vast wasteland of nothingness. Seriously, it is some of the most desolate landscape you'll see. And in one of the tours that we had, I think one with John Capper, we drove north to south the entire length of the high plains of eastern New Mexico. And I think John remarked that it was the most god-awful drive of his life. Still a little hilly. Wouldn't quite call that the high plains yet, but it's close. All right, there's Perry. See what the latest is on the hurricane. Worrisome. Whew. Dang, that's gonna be that is gonna be a nail biter. It's going to be interesting to see how much damage occurs with the core of the storm as it passes over Jamaica and Cuba. That's a pretty mountainous area of Cuba it's going to be going over. Not quite as bad as Hispaniola, but still a pretty notorious area for killing hurricanes there, eastern Cuba. So what happens with this thing, it's going to be interesting. If it weakens, it'll be more steered possibly by, the easterly flow and pushed back toward the coast, I guess. I don't know. Again, I've been out of the loop, so I don't know what the whole setup is aloft. But you would think if it was weakened, it would have a little better chance of maybe moving more toward the U.S. I don't know. What day is it supposed to emerge from northern Cuba? It's got such a very well-organized core that it may survive the trek. You're going to have that core, the core of the storm, really survive intact pretty well for it to make a comeback. We've learned that over the years watching these things going over these land masses, and they don't even have to be that tremendous of a landmass. We've seen pretty formidable hurricanes go over the Yucatan or Cuba or Hispaniola and pretty much lose their inner structure. But if that inner structure can remain intact, if it's moving fast enough to zip over those islands and not linger, we might be in shape. So it's going to miss Jamaica, and then that part of Cuba it's going to hit is going to be narrow. Tuesday, good. All right, well, it wouldn't have much of an effect then. So it's not hitting that fatter part of Cuba there. It's hitting the far eastern, the skinnier part, the least destructive area. Well, it's pretty far east, and it's going to have to definitely make that northwest turn then to be any threat at all to the U.S., if that's the case. Going to be hellacious surf down there. The way I see it, it's worth going down there to kind of hang on I-95 or just kind of travel north with it in case it decides to sneak on in. Then I'd be down there ready for it. So my preliminary thoughts on this, in terms of my chasing it, would be to go down like on Tuesday and just kind of follow it north, keep a close eye on everything, and document the surf at the coastline and some of the beach erosion and some of the flooding, which is sure to occur just from the pounding surf, higher tides. What's the moon cycle looking like early next week? Isn't it a waxing or a waning? No, it'd be a waxing crescent. Be just past new moon. So we're past new moon, I do believe, or very near it, because I remember seeing the moon on my way out here, and I knew there wouldn't be much of a moon. So at least we're going out of the new moon cycle, and astronomical tides won't be tremendously high. Should be on our way to first quarter by then, so it's about as good as you can get in terms of the moon cycle going with the tides. So waxing crescent, okay, so a little bit more than I thought, less than I thought. So yeah, that would still be quite a pull there on the tides. Yeah, so there's going to be some damaging surf and tidal issues along the coast, all along the east coast of Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, regardless, and Outer Banks as well eventually. Then, if it jogs a little northwest, we have an impact of, potentially a major hurricane Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth going down and just monitoring, kind of moving with it, monitoring the situation, documenting the surf. At that point, you can get on the coast and be okay. You're not going to have to worry about a massive surge coming in. It's going to be interesting to see if it threatens like Floyd did and what kind of massive evacuation we're going to have, and if they learned any lessons from Floyd, not to evacuate people 200 or 300 miles inland, just get them a little ways inland, 20 or 30 miles, 40 miles, and not have these interstates like Interstate 16 totally glutted with evacuees who basically, as the hurricane came on or was threatening to come on, never did in the southeast, but had it, you'd had all these people trapped on 16 with these trees coming down. So we don't need a repeat of Floyd with the largest non-wartime evacuation in history. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty large storm, so it's one of those, again, that you don't want to concentrate on the center. There's going to be, possibly even hurricane force winds on the coast for a prolonged period of time. There's a reason the southeast coast looks the way it does, like a bite's been taken out of it. These hurricanes carving out the coastline as they recurve over the millennium. Yeah, we used to get big ones back in the 1800s. I remember Tybee Island's lighthouse was taken out a couple of times by hurricanes. That's a formidable surge to take out a large lighthouse like that. It was very common for the coast of Georgia to be hit back in the 1800s. We've had some long stretch where nothing has happened there. That, it's going to be quite shocking when it does happen. And like I said yesterday, if we ever get a hurricane come in like Hugo, a more direct hit on the coast, not a glancing blow, that would just be absolutely devastating. And I think of all the big giant oak trees that are grown up and very well matured there in Savannah, and what kind of tree damage we're going to have. I remember Wilmington after Fran. Fran wasn't all that strong. I mean, it was a decent hurricane, but it wasn't like crazy strong. But all those big old giant oak trees down in Wilmington, you couldn't hardly even get around. It was quite the disaster. And I expect the same thing in Savannah. Just the massive oak trees coming down on these wood structures, and it'll just be a mess. Then if you get a storm surge that comes up the Savannah River, I guess, and takes out River Street, that would be just horrible. That would take more of a direct hit, though. Like I said, more of a Hugo type thing where it plows right in pushes that water right up the river enough to take out the riverfront. And it's going to happen. I mean, it will happen someday. This one's not oriented the way, to do that probably. And, if it makes a hard northwest turn, it can kind of sort of come in more of a plowing effect like that. But this is looking more like a glancing boat. But someday we're going to get another Hugo that's just going to come trucking right from the east-southeast straight in. And it is just going to be absolutely devastating. That's why I'm glad I've visited Savannah and Tybee as many times as I have now, because it'll be different someday. Same with the Outer Banks. You don't want to visit the Outer Banks, folks, before they disappear. They're not going to take too many more of these hits like that and just stay intact. They're going to go away. Be right back, folks. I'm going to shut things while I use the restroom.